Welcome to Compact Mysteries from CompactHistories.com, the show where we try to unravel a different bite-sized mystery each week. From baffling disappearances and strange objects to unexplained events and mysterious places. This is episode 88, The Mystery of the Marfa Lights. Marfa is a small town in the high desert of western Texas, surrounded by an immense landscape of open plains, distant mountains, and exceptionally dark skies. It lies in Presidio County, within the northern reaches of the Chihuahuan Desert, at an elevation of more than 1,400 meters. During the day, the country appears exposed and sharply defined. After sunset, those familiar landmarks dissolve into darkness, leaving isolated lights visible across distances that can be difficult to judge. This is the setting for the Marfa Lights, points of illumination reported on and around Mitchell Flat, an expanse of desert east and southeast of the town. The best-known place from which to watch for them is the Marfa Mystery Lights Viewing Center, beside US Highway 90, about 9 miles east of Marfa. Visitors look southwest across largely private ranchland towards the distant Chinati Mountains. The lights are generally described as bright, distant orbs. Most appear white, yellow, orange, or red, although witnesses have occasionally reported blue or green examples. They may remain still, move horizontally, rise or fall, disappear and return. Some appear to divide into two lights, while others seem to approach one another and merge. Their brightness can fluctuate rapidly, creating the impression that they are pulsating or flickering. None of those characteristics, however, automatically identifies an unusual phenomenon. The same view contains fixed ranch lights, fires, stars, planets, and the headlights of vehicles traveling along US Highway 67 between Marfa and Presidio. Under particular atmospheric conditions, light from these ordinary sources can appear displaced, distorted, or magnified. A moving vehicle may therefore produce a light that seems to hover above the desert or vanish without warning. Distance is another complication. Against a dark landscape with few visible reference points, the human eye cannot easily determine whether a light is small and relatively close or powerful and many miles away. Apparent speed and direction can also be misleading. A headlight following a bend in a distant road may seem to change course, while temporary obstructions can make it blink in and out of existence. For casual visitors, every unusual light may be described as a Marfa light. Researchers tend to apply stricter standards, separating identifiable sources from rare observations that cannot be immediately matched to roads, buildings, or fires. That distinction is essential, because there may not be a single explanation for everything people see. The landscape creates the conditions in which distant lights can behave in surprising ways, yet the story of Marfa began long before modern scientific instruments were carried onto Mitchell Flat, with accounts passed down by the people who first travelled through the region. The traditional history of the Marfa Lights begins in 1883. Robert Reed Ellison, a young cowhand, was driving cattle through Paisano Pass when he noticed a flickering light in the distance. He initially thought he was looking at a campfire. According to the account later associated with him, local settlers said that similar lights had been seen before, but searches of the area had failed to uncover ashes or other traces of a fire. Another early pair of witnesses, Joe and Sally Humphreys, reportedly saw the lights in 1885. Cowboys working across the surrounding ranchland also became familiar with distant illuminations that appeared at night without an obvious source. In the summer of 1919, a group is said to have ridden towards the mountains in an attempt to locate them, only to return without an answer. These stories must be handled cautiously. The 1883 sighting is frequently described as the first documented appearance of the Marfa Lights, but the surviving account was recorded retrospectively rather than in a contemporary diary or newspaper report. There is little readily available written evidence from the 19th century against which its details can be checked. The story remains an established part of local history, but it cannot be treated with the same certainty as a dated scientific observation. That limitation is important because the early accounts are often used to dismiss automobile headlights as an explanation. If the lights were seen before motor vehicles existed, the argument runs then headlights cannot account for the phenomenon. Yet the historical record does not establish that the 19th century observers saw precisely the same kind of light later viewed from the official observation site. Their experiences may have involved campfires, lanterns, atmospheric effects, or another source entirely. Reports continued during the 20th century. During the First World War, fears reportedly arose that the lights might be signals connected with hostile activity. During the Second World War, airmen training near Marfa attempted to locate their source from above. No definitive explanation emerged from either period. As the stories circulated beyond ranching communities, the lights became part of the identity of the region. Newspaper and magazine coverage brought visitors to Marfa, while books, television programs and documentaries introduced the mystery to a much larger audience. Tales involving ghosts, lost prospectors, indigenous legends and unidentified flying objects became attached to the phenomenon, although these additions were cultural interpretations rather than evidence. The state eventually formalized the viewing experience with a roadside observation area, and the present viewing center opened in 2003. What had once been encountered by ranchers crossing isolated land could now be watched by groups of visitors gathered at a recognized destination. Greater attention produced more sightings, but it also exposed a problem. Witnesses used the same name for lights displaying very different characteristics. Before investigators could determine their cause, they first had to decide what should genuinely qualify as a Marfa Light. Ask several witnesses to describe the Marfa lights and their accounts may sound remarkably different. One person might report a steady orange glow near the horizon. Another may describe a white light that appears to move, stops suddenly and then fades. Others speak of paired lights, changes in color, or objects that seem to split apart. These variations have helped sustain the mystery, but they have also made the phenomenon unusually difficult to study. Researchers therefore distinguish between commonly observed lights and what are sometimes called genuine or classic Marfa lights. The first category includes vehicle headlights, ranch lights, railway activity, campfires and astronomical objects. A genuine Marfa light is usually defined more narrowly as a light appearing over the open terrain of Mitchell Flat, away from recognized roads and fixed installations, while behaving in a way that cannot be matched to a known source. Even that definition presents difficulties. The apparent location of a light is not necessarily its true location. A distant headlight may seem to sit directly over the plane when it is actually following a road many miles beyond it. Without two or more cameras observing from separate positions, the light cannot be reliably triangulated. A single photograph shows direction, but generally provides little information about distance, height, or size. Atmospheric turbulence adds another layer of uncertainty. Light passing through moving layers of air can shimmer, change color, and fluctuate in brightness. Stars close to the horizon often appear to flash red, blue, and white for the same reason. When no surrounding landscape is visible, these changes can give a stationary astronomical object the appearance of movement. Human perception is equally significant. In darkness, the eyes have few fixed reference points. A small, involuntary eye movement can make a stationary light appear to drift, an effect known as autokinesis. If clouds, vegetation, or uneven ground repeatedly block a distant source, the light may seem to disappear and reappear somewhere else. Two separate vehicle lights can create the impression that a single object has divided. These limitations do not mean that witnesses are inventing what they see. They demonstrate that an honest observation can still be interpreted incorrectly. Someone may accurately report that a light appeared to jump, change color, or travel across the horizon while remaining mistaken about its distance or physical movement. The rarest reports are more challenging. Some witnesses claim to have encountered lights away from the public viewing center or at much closer range. Such accounts are difficult to verify because they are generally brief, unexpected, and unsupported by calibrated equipment. By the time investigators arrive, the conditions have changed, and the light has vanished. A useful investigation therefore requires more than waiting with a camera. Researchers must record compass direction, elevation, weather, road traffic, and known light sources at the same time. During the opening years of the 21st century, several teams began applying exactly those methods to the landscape around Marfa. Attempts to find the Marfa Lights were not new, but early searches depended heavily on witnesses travelling towards whatever they thought they had seen. That approach rarely succeeded. A light many miles away could disappear behind the terrain long before anyone reached its apparent position. Modern investigations instead concentrated on recording the lights from known locations and comparing them with activity elsewhere in the landscape. Researcher James Bunnell established uncrewed monitoring stations on Mitchell Flat during the early 2000s. Equipped with low-light cameras, the stations recorded the desert throughout the night and produced a large collection of images. Bunnell attempted to separate vehicle lights and other familiar sources from rarer events that appeared in unexpected locations or displayed unusual behavior. The monitoring demonstrated one of the central problems facing researchers. Potentially unexplained events were infrequent. A team could spend several nights in the area and observe many apparently mysterious lights without encountering one that survived careful examination. In May 2005, members of the Society of Physics students at the University of Texas at Dallas conducted a field investigation. They used video cameras, binoculars, traffic counters, and vehicles positioned along US Highway 67. From the viewing area, the team compared the appearance of distant lights with the movement of traffic on the road. The results were persuasive. The number and timing of lights seen southwest of the viewing site corresponded with vehicles traveling along Highway 67. When members of the team flashed the headlights of a vehicle positioned on the road, observers at the viewing area saw what resembled a Marfa Light. Cars passing one another could produce the appearance of one light overtaking or crossing another. The team concluded that all the mystery lights it observed on two of its nights could be reliably attributed to automobile headlights. Texas State University researchers carried out a more technically ambitious investigation in 2008. Over 20 nights, they used a telescope, video equipment, and a spectrometer, an instrument that separates light into wavelengths. Spectral information can help distinguish headlights, fires, and other sources. Atmospheric oxygen absorption can also assist in estimating how far light has traveled. The team recorded stationary lights, vehicle headlights, and small fires that could have been mistaken for something unknown. It did not, however, observe an event meeting its criteria for a genuine Marfa Light. This did not prove that no unusual events occurred. It showed that they were too rare to be reliably captured during a limited investigation. One particularly striking event had already been recorded in June 2005 during thunderstorms. Two monitoring stations photographed a powerful light that persisted for more than 3 hours. Researchers later estimated its peak visible output at around 10 kilowatts and found a close association with lightning activity. Possibilities included a power line arc and unusual natural processes, but no explanation was confirmed. The investigations had identified numerous ordinary lights and produced valuable measurements. The next question was whether a combination of highways, terrain, and desert air could account for the wider mystery. Automobile headlights provide the strongest explanation for the lights regularly seen from the official viewing center. Highway 67 lies beyond Mitchell Flat and carries traffic between Marfa and Presidio. Sections of the road point towards the observation area, allowing headlights to shine almost directly at viewers many miles away. The road is not continuously visible. Hills, vegetation, bends, and changes in elevation repeatedly obscure vehicles as they travel. A pair of headlights may be too distant for the naked eye to resolve separately, so they appear as a single bright point. As the vehicle follows the road, that point can brighten, fade, disappear, and return. Two cars traveling at different distances may create the impression of lights approaching, separating or passing through one another. The atmosphere can intensify these effects. On clear desert nights, the ground loses heat rapidly after sunset. Air close to the surface may become cooler than the air above it, producing layers with different temperatures and densities. As light passes between those layers, it is refracted, meaning its path is bent. Under suitable conditions, refraction can lift an image above its true position, reveal a source normally hidden below the horizon, or stretch and distort a distant light. If the temperature layers are unstable, the image may shift, shimmer, or appear to jump. This form of mirage is more complicated than the familiar pool-like shimmer seen above a hot road, but it follows the same principle of light traveling through air, of varying density. Other explanations have been proposed. Reflections from mineral deposits have little support because minerals cannot produce moving lights across the sky and moonlight is not always present. Swamp gas is poorly suited to Marfa's dry environment, while no consistent source of naturally escaping combustible gas has been shown to produce the reported displays. St. Elmo's fire usually forms around pointed objects during strong electrical conditions, rather than appearing as distant lights travelling across open ground. Ball lightning has also been considered, particularly for events associated with thunderstorms. It is a reported luminous phenomenon that generally lasts for seconds rather than hours, making it a poor match for many Marfa observations. Electrical discharges, fires, and power line faults could explain individual cases, including unusually bright or long-lasting events, without accounting for everything reported under the same name. More speculative suggestions include earthquake lights, plasma generated by geological stress, and exotic forms of atmospheric electricity. These ideas are scientifically possible in certain contexts, but no repeatable connection has been demonstrated at Mitchell Flat. Extraterrestrial craft and supernatural explanations offer no testable evidence and are unnecessary when common sources explain most observations. The scientific picture is therefore substantial but not absolute. Headlights, terrain, and atmospheric refraction can reproduce many of the famous characteristics of the lights. Whether they explain every credible report depends on the quality of the evidence and on what observers mean when they use the name Marfa Lights. The Marfa Lights are often presented as a choice between two opposing conclusions. Either every sighting is an ordinary light seen under unusual conditions, or the desert contains a completely unknown phenomenon. The evidence supports a more careful position. Lights commonly viewed from the roadside observation centre can frequently be linked to traffic on Highway 67. Their direction, timing, and movement correspond with vehicles, while controlled experiments have shown that headlights can resemble the reported phenomenon. Refraction and atmospheric turbulence explain why those lights may appear larger, higher, or less stable than expected. Ranch lights, fires, stars, and planets account for further sightings. This leaves a smaller group of observations that cannot be confidently identified. An unexplained observation, however, is not necessarily evidence of a new physical phenomenon. It may simply lack enough information. If researchers do not know the light's distance, exact direction, spectrum, or duration, several ordinary explanations may remain possible without any one of them being demonstrable. The stories from the 19th century occupy a similar position. They form an important part of Marfa's history and show that unusual lights were remembered before the arrival of motor traffic. Yet because the accounts were written down later and contain limited observational detail, they cannot establish that early witnesses saw the same lights now visible from the viewing centre. Headlights cannot explain an event in 1883, but that does not reveal what the event actually was. Instrumented observations have produced tantalizing cases. The bright object recorded during the thunderstorm of June 2005 was measurable, persistent, and associated closely in time and place with lightning. Researchers considered power line arcing, combustion, and unusual electrical or chemical processes. None provided a complete explanation at the time of the study. It remains uncertain whether that event belonged to the same category as other Marfa lights or was a separate occurrence recorded in the same region. Further investigation would require long-term monitoring from several positions. Cameras could triangulate the distance and height of a light, while spectrometers could identify its emissions or reflections. Weather stations, lightning records, and traffic data would allow researchers to compare an event with atmospheric conditions and known human activity. The rarity of the most unusual reports makes this demanding, as equipment may need to operate for months or years before capturing a useful case. For now, the Marfa lights are partly explained and partly constrained by incomplete evidence. Science has shown why many of them appear to dance, divide, and vanish. It has also shown how easily darkness, distance, and moving air can transform an ordinary source into something unfamiliar. That does not diminish the experience of standing beside Highway 90 and looking across Mitchell Flat. The landscape is vast, the distances are deceptive, and every isolated light demands interpretation. The enduring mystery is not simply that lights appear in the desert, but that determining exactly what any one witness saw can be far more difficult than seeing it. That brings us to the end of this episode of Compact Mysteries, part of the Compact Histories Network. If you enjoyed it, please follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss any future episodes, and consider leaving a rating or review, as it really helps new listeners find the show. You can find more episodes at compactmysteries.com, where you can also explore our other podcasts covering biographies, history, disasters, warfare, and true crime. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Finally, please consider supporting the show directly by buying us a coffee. Head on over to compacthistories.com/mysteriescoffee to see how. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.